So the first thing that we're going to be doing is prepping our model and getting it ready to go into another program so we can resurface. In our case, we're going to be using Autodesk Maya. And so we will reduce the polygon count on this. And to do that, we can go to the Z plugin area. We're just going to take this and then click and then drag it over so we can dock this to this area. So I'm going to use Decimation Master, open that up. And the thing is, I've got multiple pieces on this. If I do want to send all these over to Maya, that's going to be possible, and I want to show you this. You can do this on an individual basis too, so keep that in mind as well. Now, if you did have UVs on this, you could say keep UVs, and if you have polypaint data and you wanted to store that and save that and have that part of the calculation when it polygon reduces, you would be able to click those. But in this case, I'm just concerned about model data, and I just want to send these models over. So because I got multiple pieces, I could say pre-process all. But if you just have one piece that you want to work with, if we just take a look at the subtools, if I had the body selected, I could just say pre-process current, and it would just work on that one piece. Now I'm going to say pre-process all. I'm going to do all the different pieces. And so while Decimation Master is working, you can see up here, it's going to be building these temporary files behind the scenes. You won't really have to worry about that too much, but it's doing this calculation, right? So it's pre-processing all the data so you can polygon reduce this. So you can see the bar here, the progress on that. And again, depending on the polygon count that you have for each piece is going to take a certain amount of time. The higher the poly count, the longer it's going to take for that. And then when it's done, we'll be able to use this percentage of decimation. So you could say, like, if it was 1,000,000 polys and you put it down to 20% on that, then you should be about 200,000 polys on there. The one that I like to do is this K polys. So you can say exactly how many polygons you want this thing to be. So if you wanted your model to be 5,000 polys, you could put 5 right here for the 5K. And if you wanted it to be 1,000,000 polys, you could put the number 1,000 there. If you wanted it to be 1.5 million, you could do 1,500 for that number. That seems to work a little bit easier for me. So that's the plan for this. I'll pause it and let it finish out this, and then when it's done, then we can go ahead and start decimating each piece. Okay, that finished up, and it'll even tell you how long it took. So it was a little over 2 minutes to do all the different pieces on there. So we could put this at a percentage of decimation, and it could be 20%, and you could say decimate all, and that would run through each piece. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I want to have some control over this, and because of that, I'm going to be using this K-poly. So right now I'm on the body. I think I'm going to put this at 1,000,000 polys, so that needs to be 1,000, like that. And now I can say decimate current, and it'll run through. It should be very, very quick for you. And it might not even look like anything happened to the model, but if you turn on the poly frame, you can start to see and take a look at how it actually reduced the polygon count on that, and it does the best job it can to stay at that number and then reduce it down for you like that, and still preserve all the details on there. So that went pretty quick for the body. If I do this front shell, I'm going to put this at, I'm going to say, I'll just do 100 for 100K for that. And I'll say decimate current. And there was, maybe there was some polypaint coloring, so that's why it kind of changed in the color. So no big deal on that. Again, if you want to keep the polypaint data, you would need to check that at the beginning. So that front shell's done, and then this back shell's a little bit larger. It's got probably some more detail on there that I want to preserve and everything. So what I'm going to do for that one, I'll put this at 200K like that, and I'll say decimate current, and that one's done. These eyes, I did not, this has polypaint data on there, and like I was saying, I should have held that if I want to keep the polypaint data, but really I'm just concerned about the shape of this. So I'll do 100K for that again, and I'll say decimate current. There goes the polypaint data. It's going to be gone. These bags off to the side that I've got, if I just solo that, you can see what we've got going on here. So that one, I might do 100K for that again. So I'll decimate current, see what that looks like. And I'll show you if I drop this too low, what that would look like. So let's put this at like 20K, and I'll say decimate current. And so you could get away with getting like a pretty low poly model on there. Well, when I say pretty low poly, but let's say you wanted to use this as your game resolution mesh, right? So you could even drop this down to, let's just say 10K, right? And if we smooth the normals on this and you baked a normal map on there from the high to the low, you'd get pretty decent looking results, right? So that's pretty good for like holding the shape and everything else like that. But and really for resurfacing purposes, you really don't need anything that's super detailed. Like this mesh would actually be just fine for resurfacing. But because Maya can handle a little bit higher poly counts than that, then I don't need to worry about that. Let's just try 50K. And this is the kind of cool thing, right? So we did this pre-process current, and then now we can go back through and we can change these numbers and see what it looks like and everything. So you can still see some faceting on there if we get in there like there. So then maybe go up to 100. So I guess the strategy that you might want to try to use is like, hey, I'm going to get about this close to this thing. That's a pretty decent resolution for that. So as long as I don't see a bunch of faceting on there, then I should be good to go. So I'll keep it at 100K for the belt like that. And then the staff was not visible. If I just take a look at that, I'm going to put this up to, let's go, maybe 250 like that. And then this one, because it was hidden, I guess it didn't pre-process all for that. So this one, if I just want to do this particular object all by itself, I can say pre-process current, and I'll analyze the mesh and do that. Okay, so that took 23 seconds to be able to do that. And then now I can say decimate current, and we've decimated that thing down. Take a look at it with the poly frame. Still pretty dense, but it's got all the detail in there still and everything. So I'll take it off solo, and now I've got my entire object. I got it ready to go. So that's everything you need to know about the decimation master. You should be able to get your models out that way. So now that we have that job done, let's go ahead and look at exporting this thing out. So if you wanted to export out OBJ, you would need to go and export, choose your file type, OBJ, and then it would kick out whatever one of these subtools that you have selected, kick it out. What I've been doing lately is, because I would rather just kick everything out at one time and keep the naming convention and everything else like that, I'd rather you just use an FBX, okay? So there's two different places you can get to that. You can go to the plugins area, you can go to the FBX exporter importer, and you could do it that way. And if you export with the FBX settings, you can actually smooth the normals as it goes out, because Zbrush has no like normal smoothing information. So that's like if you get really close to this, you see all the faceting. We could fix that in Maya, or you could tell it to smooth the normals on there. Okay, so you can export it here. You can also now go over here to tool, you can export it here, and then you could choose FBX as your file type for that. And I'm just going to navigate and find the FBX folder that I'll be using. Okay, so I'm going to save it into this area. I just gave it a meaningful name, and I put underscore deci for decimation models. So you can use whatever you want for that, but I would suggest giving some kind of descriptor for that. So I'll just hit click save, and it'll kick out this. It'll bring up this dialog box for you. And again, we could tell it to smooth the normals, and this is the smooth normals amount. So like that's over 90 degrees. So just leave it like that. I'm going to go ahead and say OK for that and let it kick this thing out. Okay, so it finished up. It did take a little bit of time to export everything out, especially when it got to the body, the you know, that pretty dense mesh that I had on there. So just be aware, it might take just a little bit of time to export those things out depending on the polygon count that you have. Okay, so I'm going to minimize ZBrush, and then I'm going to go over to Maya. So here we are inside of Maya, and let's go ahead and just go to File, and then Import, and then do the option box. And you should see FBX as a file type that you should be able to load in here. And if you don't, you'll have to go to Windows, Setting Preferences, Plugins Manager. You could type in FBX and make sure that that's loaded within there. So make sure that that's loaded. and you should be able to get to that. Go ahead and click import and then navigate and then find where your file sits. Okay, here's where my model sits. I'm going to go ahead and click open, and that's going to say import, and it should load in each one of those models, and it should bring them in, and it should actually have the same naming convention that we have for the subtools. So I just paused the video for just a second to let that load in. So I tap F to frame in on everything. Now it's probably got some color data on there. It's also going to import your cameras in here too. So maybe just take all your cameras like this. I'll select this, hold down Shift, then hold down Control, and then hold down Shift and select those. Control G, just group those up and just call this cameras like that. And then I might just select all the geometry, Control G to make a group, and then I'll call this Geo like that. Okay. Now if I want to hide those cameras, I can select this, hold down Shift, hit Control H to hide them. Then I've got these models here. If I go to display and I go to polygons and I go to custom polygon display, if you don't want to see that color information, let's just put on all, hit apply on this, and then I'm going to say color and shaded display. Just do that, and actually I'm going to turn that off like that. I think what's going on here, I thought maybe that was some vertex color. So if I select the model, tap Control A to bring this up, it brought in some materials for me, and it did color code those all. So what we could do, I'll just select all the pieces that we have here like this. And if we just right click over here, we can say assign new material. You could do that. I'm just going to go to assign favorite materials, and I'm just going to use a blend. And because I've got all the pieces selected like that, it should just throw a blend on the model, and you can see what this looks like. So it looks pretty good. Looks pretty decent. Okay, so now we're ready to begin using this to resurface with, right? And if I want to work on just one model at a time, then maybe I just take everything else, and then I hit Control H to hide that, and I can hide all the other different pieces. Okay, so that's going to be everything we need to take a look at as far as getting the models outside of ZBrush, decimating them down, getting them into a polygon count that's sufficient for us, and then now we're ready to start resurfacing. So let's start taking a look at that. Okay, for the resurfacing part in Maya, we're going to be using the quad draw tool, and you can find that up here in the upper right hand corner. You just go here and you can do quad draw tool. But before we do that, we need to put this model in a make live mode. And if we just go up here to this magnet icon, you can say it says this make the selected object live. You do that, and the things that you do operations start to like stick to the surface on that. Okay, so we've got that. We'll put it on the quad draw tool at that point, and then we can start drawing within through here. Now my model is symmetrical, so I'm going to have the symmetry, and we've got it on world X. If you had symmetry on your object and it was not centered and pushed out to the side, you could do object X potentially, but it's going to do this world X. And the way that this tool works is what we can do is just lay down a point. So we're going to go point, 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 point like that. And just click. And if you hold down Shift, it'll make a polygon over the top of that. And then at that point, you can just take these corners, you can click and you can drag them. Now, if you get really close to the center, they should snap together. And what I'm going to suggest for you is that we make the pattern of this really simple, and then we can add more complexity to it afterwards. So I'll just do this point, point, and again we can hold down Shift, point, point, Shift, point, point, Shift, point, point, Shift. And I'm going to keep saying this. Get used to this method and this mode of working, right? And so I'm going to call this the corner of my mouth, right? So I need to make sure I'm doing the same amount of topology on the bottom as the top. And so I've got one here at the bottom, and then now I need to repeat this. So I've got the same here, right? We got the same here for this, at least for the amount. The shape is going to be different, and that's completely fine. And you can see I'm kind of finessing these points as I make this stuff, right? So I can do that, do another one here, something like this, and we got that there, and then now I can kind of fit that. Okay, so for the mouth, it's important that we basically have the circular band that goes around. Now, if we hold down Control, we could add another loop going in through here. So that's why I was saying it's important to do the pattern first and get that laid out. And if you need more geometry in through here, like let's say I want a piece of geometry here, I can hold down Control and I can drag left and right, and I can just left click, tap to add geo there. And I'll add geo here. And so you can see, like, really quickly we can match that. But I'm going to keep the pattern pretty simple, and I might just move this over and split this one, and I might move this over just a little bit and then split this one and then move that around. And so then now we've got that band going around the mouth for us, and I think that will be just fine for now. So the other thing is, when you're working with characters, you would want the thing for the eye to be able to animate, and so you need that ocular as well. So I'll just show you. I know this is not the typical like human eye, but normally what I do for this is I might do like point, point, point like that, and then this would end up being something like a tear duct, and through here, something like that. And then this would start to turn. So I'll add a point here like that. And then yeah, so then just start working my way around the model on here like that. And you can see we can go up to really thin geometry like that. Again, I think this is important to get the pattern down. So like really what I could do, I'll make this really sparse, so there won't be much topology. So I'll push this here, and I'll put this down at the very bottom towards the center of the eye, and then I'll add another polygon here, one here, like that. And if it's too far away and you hold down Shift, it might start to want to grab to other things. So you could get that going there. If that gives you problems, you can just move the points pretty close to that, and then you can push them over this direction like that. So I could do that. I think that would work fine. We could fill this thing in. Now, if we wanted, we could have a split going down through the center of this and start to round this out just a little bit like that. And then maybe we would add just a little bit more geometry. And that, what's going on there is trying to snap to this, and it's pushing that point over there. So in order to get that to not do that, I could push this over and just let it grab onto that surface there. So yeah, so let's and sometimes I need to, if you hold down Shift, you can relax these points. It's just getting confused as to like where that point should be grabbing onto. So let's just put this over here like this. So this is the corner of my eye. This will be up just a little bit more. And then once we got that pattern, it's going to be really easy again for us to hold down Control and then add something to that. I say that and it does that. So I just need to push this out a little bit further again, so it's got a surface to grab onto as soon as it makes that point. So I'll put a piece of geo there. And push this out here. And again, sometimes it's a little difficult to get exactly like where that thing is grabbing onto. Now you can take a face, and you can see I can move the face too. So that might be something you need to do. It's really getting confused right now in that part, and I do have these issues. You can also grab an edge, and then now that thing is snapping, and it was just having trouble at that point. So sometimes I just got to move this stuff around in different ways like that just to get it to snap up. So that's starting to work pretty good here. Again, I'm going to push this there. And then just push this point down. Move this edge. Nope. Move it down a little further. Yeah, it's still having issues with this. Sometimes I'm just not exactly even sure why it has so much trouble with certain pieces of geometry. So Shift will relax on this face. And again, I'm still just trying to grab just this portion. And it might be because it's so thin of a surface on there, is trying to grab onto the back side of it. So really, I think that's probably what's going on here with this thing. Which is a little annoying, but yeah, so that's what's going on with this. Okay, I'm just gonna let it grab there and I can pull here, and I think that'll be fine. So that's what I was doing. It was like sticking to the inside of the eye socket there. So that's why that was happening. So now once I get this thing laid out, now since I've got the pattern done, it's going to be a whole lot easier for me to fix this up and just hold down control and add divisions to this. Now, this creature really doesn't have the same type of structure as an eye, the human eye. I just wanted to show you that pattern. So I'm just going to push these points into each other and then basically sew them up like this. And then I'm going to turn this just into a ocular membrane that just goes around there. And then fit this to the actual silhouette of the geometry a bit better. Like that. Okay, so I think this is doing better now. And then now I can hold down control and I can just add some geo to the center very easily like that. And then the next strategy would be to start to combine these together or start to join them together. So I've got, if I hold down Shift, you can see this will very easily make a piece of geo and go across there like that. And so that works. And I've got this. So that just worked out pretty nicely for me to be able to join this stuff together. And I'm just going to rearrange this just a little bit. So that's going to join up real nice. That's going to join up. So I'm starting to connect these together. Something else, like if you've got a nostril structure on there, you probably want to start like figuring that out first. And so like trying to build a pattern that works for this too. So like I'm going to try to redirect this and then have it wrap around like this. And I know this is probably a bit more detailed than the other parts just because we need so much geo to kind of like describe what that curvature is. But if this is what the pattern needs to be for the nose, then I just let it kind of be what it is. And then try to figure out a little bit later, like if I'm going to add more geo to this and connect it up and everything, I'll do that. I'll do that later. So I think something like this wrapping around would work fine. So again, I'm just laying out points, and I think that would work something like this. Okay. So the other thing, I can start to show you some other tools on here that would help out. Okay, so we've already just looked at the point thing. We can hold down control and we can add to things on here like this. Now if you do tab and you just click and drag out, you can drag out an edge, one edge at a time, and any time you get really close with these things, these points, and they overlap each other, they'll join together. So I can hold down tab and do that, hold down tab, drag that to the corner, tab here for that, tab here. I'm going to hold down tab here and then maybe join these up. And sometimes I might have to get a little bit closer just to make things work. So I'll push this here. Sorry, caps lock off. There we go. Hold on tab, drag that out. Let's do that there. So that's starting to work for that. And then if I see this as something, so I'm just going to put a point here, and I can see that this is going to kind of run across here like that. And if I hold down tab, I can do that and just close that out. So that worked pretty well for me in the pattern that I was trying to make and build. But yeah, sometimes it just feels kind of like you're working a puzzle, and you got to kind of solve for what's going on shape-wise with this. So here we are in another situation where I really need to join this together with this. Eventually, I'd probably add more geo and then run this across here like that. Now, it is possible if you hold down Control and Shift, that will get rid of geometry, so it would get rid of that entire line. Now, I did connect that stuff up, so that's why that's happening there on that. So I'm just going to hit undo. I just wanted to show you that's how you would join those things together. So I could probably just like bridge some stuff like that, and then that's starting to finish up that geo there. So that was pretty easy to join that up. And again, I would make this more complex after it's all kind of figured out and it's joined up. And if you need more geo after that point, it's just going to be so easy for you to hold down Control and add these loops. But really, the tougher part is figuring out the patterns and then joining those things together. And then once that's done, then it makes it really easy to add more geometry for that. So I do see a situation like this that you can see. How would I finish that? So this might actually go from this to a quad, and then this, and then that's going to start to line up with that there eventually. And again, this is causing a situation where I need more geometry in through here, and we've got this very simple pattern for the lips right now, so I won't change that. I'll just kind of leave that maybe open for later to go and say, yeah, I know I need to do something to join these things together and match up the overall resolution of this stuff. But you can see it's starting to connect pretty easily, and start again. We got that pattern going on for things. Now on this, I would want to keep the flow like what we got for the geometry. I know this is like lower geo, and we got this high amount of curvature, and it makes a bigger shape. So we need more geometry coming off of this thing. So like if I build something like this, we can make a quad here and start to turn it this direction like that. And even if we do something like this, this is a really big quad here, so I would want to try to do something maybe a little bit less on here. So I'd have to definitely figure that out. And I was saying that this is what I was saying is the corner of the mouth, and I would really like for that to be more like going out at this angle, and imagine like lines of expression and things working with this, kind of being able to pull like in this direction and through here. So let's do this here. Then wrap that around. So I'm just going to hold on Control Shift and get rid of the. Sometimes like maybe what was being made just isn't really working all that great. And like I know I just need more geometry on the outer part of this for this curvature. So anytime you have curvature, the only way you can get curvature in a surface is you have to have geometry to support it, right? So even this is pretty chunky. And so if I add another split through here, this is starting to look better. And again, even from the standpoint of trying to figure out what the pattern of this is, I can just tell like if things are just entirely too big of the polygons, because my goal is to try to get these somewhat in the vicinity of being the same size roughly. And if I've got some polygons that are just way too big, that could definitely be problematic. Okay, and I'm gonna keep going here for this. One thing I could show you on here, I already showed you tab, and you can click and you can drag that out. And if you want to do this, if you've got a line or an edge, like almost a loop here, you can hold down tab and then middle mouse drag, and you can drag out a whole bunch more geo at that point. And you can see if I do tab and then drag that out, you can see we can do stuff that's even larger. Now what it becomes a little bit more challenging sometimes, the way that this wraps around and stuff and starts to run into each other, so just got to be a little bit careful with that. And then now I can start to, let's hit undo for that. Try to get these points a little bit closer to each other like that. So I'm going to try to make this run across like that. And that is making, that's making these polygons like really, really big. So I was trying to be a little bit clever with the geometry and have less, but that's not really helping in this case. So I could do something like that. And once this is laid out, see how I can hold down shift and then I can start to smooth that out. That's a really nice feature. And what it's doing is it's relaxing it on the surface and it's trying to average the size of the polygons on here and still have it stick to the surface that we're working on. So that works really well, really well. And I think I need to start to turn this like that. So you want to avoid these poles if you can, but it's virtually impossible in all situations. I mean, if you're trying to have the geometry flow along a certain way here and then flow somewhere else, because you could just make a quadded model for everything, but then for this organic stuff, I would not suggest that. So let's go here. And again, sometimes you got to pull these points a little bit closer just to get them to behave the way that you're hoping for. Okay. Just like that. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this out. The back of the head would be a little bit easier and maybe a little bit more forgiving. Some other things that I wanted to talk about is the pattern that you'd want for maybe shoulders and arms. So I like to try to keep this as an ocular kind of band going around here too. So again, I'm just going to do a really large kind of pattern. Oops, and then join that stuff together a little bit later. And try to keep it the same on the back side potentially. So we've got just one really large polygon here, and this is at the top of the shoulder. So we can do another one going back, and we're starting to emulate this. And then we would have one more at the base, okay? Like that, and then now I can start to work my way around. That. And I think I'm going to need quite a bit more geo to join this together at that point. So now that I've got that made, I can push these up into the crevices a bit more. So now I gotta, again, the goal is to get this band going around here that I can hold down control and I can just add more geo very simply for something like that. Okay. And then now we could pull off of here and start to make geometry for the chest structure. And again, if we were trying to make this like smaller polygons, you can just hold on control for that. I'll keep this pretty large through here, like that, and I'll get it close enough to there where I know this is at a different resolution than the neck, and so I've got to figure out how to join that all together, and figure that out stuff out later. Again, what I think is nice to is just kind of get these various patterns going and having that work. I will do this just to have some understanding of where this is going for this neck as it wraps around. Probably something like that. And then at that point we could start to join these things together. And that's a pretty big polygon, so I'll probably start to split this in a way. So like you can see what I did here. This is a quad. This looks more like a triangle, so I just need to add a point, and then I can make this into a quad. Now, if you ever do want to just have triangles, after you make the quad, you can take the corner and then just push it up here, and that'll make a triangle. But I am going to leave that as a quad, and then start to pull this down off of here. Sorry, there we go. And then I'll push this together, and then we got this. Okay, and that's starting to work. And again, don't forget you can hold down tab, middle mouse drag once you've got something like that, and that would make it easy to get this going here. Now if I hold down shift and relax on this, I can start to get a more even distribution of the polygons on through here. So again, I know I keep repeating myself about this pattern business, but then after you have the pattern and you can join this stuff together, just using some of the tools that they have will make your life a whole lot easier just to get things moving like this. And then hold down shift and you can kind of relax this stuff a little bit later. And I'll do one more row. Push this there. Oops, there we go. And if you ever see something weird like that snap, just go ahead and undo that. That's not that big of a deal. So tab, middle mouse drag, and I can join that together. Oops, not caps lock. There we go. Undo. And just shift on the bottom here. Just relax that. Hold down tab, middle mouse drag for that. And see how far I'm stretching that? That's just telling me I'm going to start to add more geo that starts to come off like that. And I'll relax this. Get this closer in here. Now I can hold on tab and then drag out this whole edge here, tab, drag this, and then join those together, and then hold down shift, start to relax that. Okay, so that will give me everything I need around the shoulder. If you want, depending on the pattern that you want for your delt, you might be doing something like this. Yeah, wrapping that around like that. Okay. Um, the other thing, you need a little more geo around your wrist than you would other places, like any place you have deformation and higher areas of curvature. So let's see, there's 1, 2, and that'll go there. 3, 4, in the back of the arm. And depending on the angle to try to see if I can make it make that polygon, sometimes again I might have to do something like this and then drag the point on there to get it to connect up. Just because it, depending on the camera, it just gets confused as to knowing like what do you want me to do. So there's a pretty big polygon, and again on the wrist, then I would probably have much more density around that area for the deformation part. Okay, and you would do something very similar for the knees. We got that, and then we could start to finesse this band around here to be more specific with the shape. Sometimes like it just was not working for me. I'm not really sure why. Again, why it gets confused, but I just usually move the camera view and just kind of go like, it is what it is. I'll try to figure out a different angle on that. So again, I can hold down control and then I can add geo, geo, geo like that. And that's going to make it really simple for that stuff. And then on this part, he's got a tail, so that's going to make things a little bit interesting. But normally, again, I would try to do this band going around the leg and up over the hips. And then come back down around the glutes. So I'll hold on tab and then just drag that out. Tab, drag that out. Tab, drag that out. Now let's hold down shift, join that together. So now I got that band kind of going around there. And then we can add more geo pretty easily. Now once it's made, we could push it up further up into this crevice part, but just to make it, maybe you're further away from it for that. And then maybe this is down here a little bit more. Okay, so that would work. Um, and yeah, again, because the tail it would be problematic. But what I would normally do on something like this is try to almost think of like, could you make a band going around the waist? That's almost like the think about on underwear, like the elastic part on the underwear. And if you do that, you are basically making like an underwear structure for the character topology wise. It would kind of feel like that. And now this character's belly sticks out further, so we need some special geo for that. More geo, I guess. And then even though like I know that this is going to eventually have to join up to this, so if I could start to plan for that just a little bit, you can see we've got that joined together, but I at least have that this band that's going all the way around the character's waist. And I know that's got to come down a little bit further there. I could probably pull this geo up a little bit higher in this area to join that. And because I do have a tail structure on this, again, I need another band going around here. Like that. And now I could hold down control and then just add more geo that way. Like that. But this band allows me to, like if we extruded this out, it's basically a cylinder now at that point. And then we could end this, like the tail is a lot longer. It would make a little bit more sense. But now that I've got that, I could hold down tab, middle mouse, and then that drags out something like this. So here's another little strategy that I found works pretty good. So if I really don't want to build this stuff, like keep dragging it out. And what I could do is get it pretty far down along, like if it is a tail structure or something like that, you can get it pretty far down the surface like this. And I'm just trying to make this fairly clean like that. Okay. And then we could end this a little bit later, but what I can do now is I can hold down control and I can just easily add a split here, and you see how it pops on that surface and reforms to it. And then I can hold down shift and I can just relax the surface on there quite a bit. Okay. And if you've got anything that's more circular, you can definitely follow the pattern. If you take a cube and you do the smooth mesh preview on it and turn it into a sphere, you can see how that that piece of geo forms on there. And if you start to see that pattern, you can emulate some of that stuff yourself. So this might be on the top of it. So you got a quad thing like this, and if that quad is going to basically round out, it would do this. Didn't mean to grab that. Okay, there. But see how this starts to, like if we do this, it starts to make, again, something that's, this was quads, and now I can do this and add more geo to it, and that's ocular at that point. So I'm going to join that up there, join this here, join here, like that. And I'm going to join that. I'm going to get rid of this here. And I'm going to do this. I'm just going to join this stuff together. And you'll see I'm going to add more geo in just a second. So I know this is making it really, really low res. But again, about the whole pattern thing, okay, now I got this. Hold down shift and relax it. We get this out here just a little bit more. And then now I can just hold down control and then add a split here and here. And now I'm nice and even for everything. And if you're relaxing a whole bunch of points, so Maya's got the soft mod tool, you can tap B. And if you click B and drag left and right, and then looks like, let's just double click on the move because this is like really big for the soft selection. The fall off radius is really high. Let's pull this down. And then now, go back into that quad draw tool, B, and then click and drag left or right. You can see I can get a really small fall off or higher. So now if I have this on the soft mod and hold down shift, I can relax. And I can also click and drag and then slide the topology around on the surface. Like that. Okay. All right, so that's really a lot of the strategies that I wanted to show you for doing this. I think, okay, I'm going to tap B to get rid of the soft mod thing. There is one more thing that I think I should probably talk about that might make your life a little bit easier. I got this big gap in between the mouth here. Eventually, if you end up making a mouth bag, you would want all this stuff to connect together. So like maybe this is what I'll do. I'll take these points, I'll actually keep them on the actual, like where the lips meet together. Join this together. We already figured out the pattern. We already know that this thing can hold down control and we can do this around the mouth. Now knowing that, we can join this stuff together, and I've found that joining it together and then splitting it apart later if I needed makes my life a little bit easier. So you can see what I just did with that corner of the mouth here, that point. I left it, and then that allows this to still work like this. So you need that point still there. If you drag it here like that, it won't do it all the way around because this is still a quad here. And I'm trying to get this in the corner of the mouth there. Again, maybe this is not working so great for that pattern, so I'll just get rid of that geo for now and figure out how to connect that up a little bit later. Then maybe it's something like that flows out of there. Okay. And he is smiling, so it is kind of going up there like that. So now maybe I do a little bit more geo like this, and then that's got the lips pretty well put together and figured out. Again, if I need to split these this geo apart, it's pretty easy to be able to do that. You can select these edges, and after that, if you're in the modeling tool set, let's see, there's a detach, and it's right here under edit mesh. You can detach those edges, and then that'll separate those out. But I've found that getting this to form to the mouth structure and everything, this works pretty good as far as a technique goes for that. So there's that. And again, from the job that I kind of have for myself now at this point is figuring out how to get these patterns to kind of work and get it to everything to join up. And again, in my mind, that feels kind of like a puzzle structure, and it's kind of fun to figure out. I've had enjoyable times, I guess, doing that. You might not like it. I don't know. You'll have to see how you feel about that as far as a job and what you're trying to do. But I'm going to go ahead and put this in a time-lapse mode, and you can see how I finish this out. But as far as techniques, I think that's a pretty good amount of techniques and some thought behind the pattern structure and everything of what you need to do for stuff like that. You might see something on this like, and we could treat these as teeth as well, and depending on how much geometry you have on there, you know, I might do ocular, like rounded structures around these things and then build these almost out as like cones coming out for that, for the geo for that. So I think teeth are another thing, and then again, because these structures that I've made, they're nails obviously, but they feel like basically what a tooth would do. I think you can see a little bit later in the time lapse on that how I would approach something like that. And again, I've already shown you this technique for this on here, but I just saw an opportunity after I've made that one band. It's so easy to just drag that stuff out, rearrange it, and then hold down Control and be able to do this kind of stuff on here like that. So maybe do that, and then start to relax this on the surface, and you can see how quickly, because we've got that pattern and we've got some geo on there, how quickly we can get that stuff put together. Okay, so yep, time-lapse mode, and you will see how to finish all this out. Okay, I would say this probably took about a good 2 hours, maybe. Maybe not quite 2 hours, but took a little while to get everything resurfaced up. And I think the trickiest parts were probably going around these little toe structures. And then you can see what I did here. I built one of the fingers first and duplicated those multiple times. So if I just had a certain amount of faces selected that I wanted to duplicate. Let's just grab these here like that. So let's just say I was duplicating the fingers like I've got there. You can go to edit mesh, and you can go to duplicate on here, right here, and then the option box for that, I checked off this separate duplicate faces, otherwise that makes that into a new object. Didn't really want that. So it took a little bit of work to like duplicate this, move it, and then kind of refit it on there, but I wanted the same amount of geometry for each one of these fingers, so I approached it that way. And it is possible in hands, like if you want to have more resolution in the fingers and not have it go all the way up through the arms, it's possible that you can do that. And you can see how this was rerouted like this, so it flows around this way. So that geometry doesn't flow up and through there. So that was a little bit of a special case. I did do these parts on here where I had a basically a quad on there like that, and then if you shift right click, you can get to the circularized components, and if it's just a square, it probably doesn't make too much sense. But I took that square and I used this add divisions on there, so I did that like this, and so I just did, you know, a division of 1. And now if I shift right click and say circularize components, you can see how it'll do that there, and you can actually twist the geometry on there. So that's kind of what I did to get this going here, just so I could have a better silhouette in these little points that exist on there. I'm trying to think if there's any other special sauce kind of stuff. So whenever there was holes at the bottom of the feet, if I do this, I'll select this face and hit Control F11, convert that to faces like that. Just get rid of it. Let me close this here. If you're in object mode like this, shift right click, and there is a fill holes, and it filled the bottom of the holes there like that. And what I was able to do with that geometry was just select this, select that face, shift right click, say extrude face, do an offset on it. And you actually don't even need to do the offset, but I'll just show you what's going on for that. And then if you shift right click, you can say merge faces to center, and you can just do something like that. So that's how I kind of close some of that stuff off. Did a very similar thing with the eyes up here. Let me go back to this. So if we do this offset, you can also do a thickness. So for like the eyes, I did that and just hit G for my, oops, let's just do this again. Shift right click, extrude face, offset again, and then do this thickness and go in. And then now I can do G for my last command, and then just keep doing these offsets. And then maybe now I'll merge that to the center. So that's kind of how I push the eye structure in. I'll just hit undo to get that back. Like that. So, yep. So those are the kind of maybe things that weren't super obvious about what I did on that. But you can see at the end, the poly count for this is pretty low. He's under 8,000 polys for this. Now, I do think he's still a little bit chunky and through here, through the arms, as far as like there's pretty big polygons. So I could probably go up to like 10,000 polys with this to have that look a little bit smoother, and maybe it would be a matter like if I carried this loop up and through here, and so like even if I did let's see here, if I'm in object mode, and let's do Control Shift X to do the multi-cut tool, or you can come up through here and get to the multi-cut tool. If I was going to just run a loop through there, it looks like it would get kind of messy, so I'd have to work at that just a little bit, like if I really wanted to run more geometry up through the arms like that. But I think it's fairly decent the way that it is. Yeah. Okay, so that will conclude this part, talking about how we can do some resurfacing inside of Maya, and you know, taking that model that we've got from Zbrush, decimating it, bring it over, and building ourselves better game resolution topology.